What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500 Top 5 DFS Picks video for Sunday, March 20th at the newly reconfigured Atlanta Motor Speedway. I'm your host, Chris Pennell. You can find me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, and this video is presented by PrizePicks. In today's video, we are going over general track strategy, how to approach the slate from a DFS perspective, and my top 5 DFS picks on the slate. Keep in mind, this video is being recorded pre-qualifying in practice, so some of my opinions and thoughts on these drivers could end up changing throughout the weekend. So making sure you're staying up to date on what happens in practice and qualifying, and even what happens in the Xfinity and Truck Series will be very beneficial to you in creating fantasy NASCAR lineups this weekend. And if you want more up-to-date info and analysis, you can find me and Jason on the Awesemo Live Before Lock on Awesemo's YouTube channel, an hour leading up until the slate, breaking down all the questions that you may have and going through the entire starting grid with up-to-date analysis, since we will know practice and qualifying over the weekend. And as far as how we should approach this, say from a DFS perspective, I would love to sit here and tell you exactly how I think this is going to play out. But as for right now, on Friday morning, we are pretty in the dark because this is a whole new Atlanta Motor Speedway. If you were looking at recent track history here at Atlanta, you can completely toss that aside. It is no longer relevant. You can throw it right out the window because they have completely redone this track. It used to be a rough abrasive surface. They've now repaved that, supposed to race like it's 34 years old, and they've increased the banking to 28 degrees. And we are now running the Super Speedway package, which is similar to what we see at Daytona and Talladega, not what we saw at Las Vegas, Auto Club, and Phoenix earlier in the season, which runs the 670 horsepower package. So it looks like we could end up being in store for some chaos this weekend. And the odds makers in Vegas would agree, as Ryan Blaney is currently the odds-on favorite to win at plus 1,000, when you typically see like a Kyle Larson or Denny Hamlin as the favorite at a 1.5 mile track, sitting at odds at like plus 350 to plus 400. So Vegas is certainly hedging their bets and looking like it's going to be a bit of a chaotic race here. And I'd have to agree. Kurt Busch did some testing here earlier in the season, and he said once they got into packs, they were running several miles per hour faster. So it looks like we're in store for some pack racing. If that's going to be the case, if you remember how we played Daytona, which was a stack-to-back strategy, it looks like it could be somewhat similar this weekend. If it is going to be a stack-to-back super speedway type race, place differential is certainly going to be king, as dominator points are pretty sporadic in those kind of races. Dominator points, since everyone's drafting, fast laps tend to get spread out, and the guys leading laps tend to change quite frequently. So it looks like it could be a place differential race, but again, making sure we see what happens in practice in the lower level series will be quite telling this weekend. So getting into the picks, we'll start with number 5 here, and we have Ricky Stenhouse Jr., $7,100 on DraftKings and $6,500 on FanDuel. And if you guys played last weekend, Ricky Stenhouse was the stone cold chalk. Everyone was playing him. He was in a great spot starting dead last, and he happened to fail you. He was absolutely awful. He got several laps down. Was not a good play, but I'm willing to go right back to the wall here, because if this happens to be a plate-like race, I know Ricky Stenhouse can be quite volatile. We saw that last weekend in a super speedway races. A lot of guys tend to wreck out, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is known quite so for doing just that. But I want to take a chance here at this price point because he's very, very good at plate races. The average finish doesn't really back that up, but he actually does have one of the best average running positions in the entire series at plate races, which means during the race he happens to be running pretty well, but he's more of a records or checkers type, so that average finish can definitely get skewed by finishes outside the top 30. And we saw at Daytona earlier in the season, he actually got all the way up to the front, but Brad Keselowski ended up spinning him out at some point, so the average finish does get skewed there. But if this does end up being a plate-style race, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. should be on top of our radars, especially for tournaments. And coming in at number 4, we have Cendric at $1,700 on DraftKings and all the way up to $9,000 over on FanDuel. And I've been using the rookie a lot in these videos, but it's hard to bet against him here after what we saw at the Daytona 500 to start off the season, as he won it as a rookie, which was very, very impressive. He's in a Penske car, which they tend to run these tracks very, very well. He can team up with Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, which are two of the best super speedway drivers out there, so it really helps to have good teammates at a track like this if it's going to end up racing like I'm assuming it's going to on Friday morning. Again, that could end up changing, but we don't have to worry about the equipment. He's a very talented driver, and he already showed us he can do it, which with the next gen car, we don't have much data to look at. So the fact that he was able to stay up front for the majority of the race at the Daytona 500 gives me high hopes for this race at Atlanta this weekend. And moving on to number 3, it's a guy I haven't really played much this season besides at the duels and Daytona, but it's Brad Keselowski, $8,600 on DraftKings, and only $7,500 over on FanDuel. So I love the pricing on both sites here for Brad Keselowski. I know he has not been great whatsoever since the super speedway races, but I'm going to get right back to the well here on Brad Keselowski, as he is absolutely fantastic at tracks like Daytona and Talladega. And if you want to throw in some of the intermediates, not using past Atlanta, but some of the low tire wear like Charlotte and Las Vegas and other various 1.5 mile tracks that you can kind of throw in with the super speedway races that I'm also viewing in projections this week. Keselowski has been absolutely fantastic at them. And if you're looking strictly at the plate races, he's got the second best average running position, only behind Cendric, which that's a very small sample size. So if you happen to exclude that, no one has a better running position than Brad Keselowski, meaning he tends to be up near front. And he's got one of the best average driver ratings, has a win, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, some of the most laps led. Can't really look at fast laps, but they've been up there as well. But Keselowski at this price point, he is a very aggressive driver, which can be a little bit hit or miss at these track types, kind of similar to Ricky Stenhouse. But the upside is certainly there if he can happen to keep the car clean. And the good thing for DFS players is that he tends to be the one that's wrecking other people. So I'd rather it be that way if you are rostering Keselowski this weekend. And before we get into our next pick, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Prize Picks. They offer daily prop-based contests. Use promo code Awesemo for a $100 first match deposit bonus. There's no sharks, optimizers, or mass entries. 5-player lineups can add up to 10 times your entry fee. Use your knowledge of multiple sports with cross-sport entries. You can download in the App Store, on Google Play, or play on PrizePicks.com. Use your free player props tool to help you make the best selections. Get 1 free month of Awesemo plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at Prize Picks. You'll receive an email within 24 to 48 hours to redeem your first free month of Awesemo plus Platinum. And moving on to number 2, we have Joey Logano, $9,900 on DraftKings and all the way up to $13,000 over on FanDuel. So looking like a much easier fit over on DraftKings this weekend. But similar to what I've said about the other guys previously, this is going to look like a plate race. Joey Logano is a guy that we always have to take into consideration. He's got the second most laps at Daytona and Talladega over the past 10 races. He is always a fixture at the front, and he can work with his Penske teammates, Joey Logano himself, obviously, then Ryan Blaney and Cendric. They tend to form a train near the front. Used to be Brad Keselowski in the past, but not be surprised if these Fords are fast once again that we saw at Daytona. Logano's a bit of a wreckers or checkers guy once again, but these kind of guys can pay off mightily in tournaments on DraftKings, even on FanDuel as well at these types of tracks. And finally, my number 1 player for the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500 at Atlanta is no other than Ryan Blaney, $10,700 on DraftKings, the most expensive driver over there, and $13,500 over on FanDuel. And he was hot last week, so that might bump his ownership a little bit, but I have no reason to want to fade Ryan Blaney at a plate track. His odds over in Vegas are the favorite to win, tied with Kyle Larson. And if this is going to look like a plate race, Ryan Blaney definitely deserves to be the favorite, as he has been absolutely phenomenal at them over the past 10 races, boasting 3 wins, which is the most of any driver, 5 top 5s, 7 top 10s, the third most laps led. And he also stuck into the optimal lineup at Daytona early in the season, despite a pretty high starting position. And again, I am looking to use these Fords and these Penske cars, and Ryan Blaney pretty much checks each and every single box for me. And I know he's a little bit expensive, the most expensive driver. I'm close on both sides, second most expensive over on FanDuel. But pricing shouldn't be much of an issue. We typically see at Daytona and Talladega where you can leave a lot of money on the table. So even if you are spending up for a couple drivers, you can easily fit in some scrub drivers at the end and still put a very, very strong lineup. So to recap, we have at number 5, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., number 4, Cendric, number 3, Brad Keselowski, number 2, Joey Logano, number 1, Ryan Blaney. Now you're going to see a common theme here. All these drivers are in Fords. They were all very fast at super speedways, and they were very fast at Daytona. And a lot of these guys are on the same team, Cendric, Joey Logano, and Ryan Blaney. So a bit of a theme here, but I think there is going to be some positive correlation when you're building lineups this weekend. If you did end up enjoying today's content, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and leave a comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of the takes I had throughout today's video. You can also follow us on Sunday for the Live Before Lock show, where we'll break down the entire slate post-qualifying and practice, which will be very important this weekend, and answer any questions you may have. But with that being said, I wish you all the best of luck, and I'm really looking forward to the racing this weekend at the newly reconfigured Atlanta Motor Speedway.